I thought I would preface this video by saying, if you're the religious sort, you do you. I have no problem with people practicing their faith, so long as they aren't infringing on other people's right to do the same or not. But anyone who makes any sort of claim is fair game for criticism. I'm not telling anyone to stop, but if you can feel free to say something, I can do the same. At least while we still can, before the internet implodes and we are all left scratching our opinions onto toilet walls again. That said, let's take a look at this guy.
Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to discuss 8 questions that I know for a fact no atheist can answer.
Well, that is a bold claim, Milado. I mean, any question can be answered to some degree. Here's hoping that by can't answer, you don't mean they don't give the answers I want.
So let's begin.
Let's.
The first question is, if morality isn't objective, does that mean that what Hitler did during the Holocaust isn't inherently wrong? But in fact, our actions are just the consequence of nature. Can anyone truly say that what Hitler did wasn't wrong? That it was only nature?
Well, morality is a human invention, so yes, absolutely, we can say it is wrong to us. We derive this kind of morality from the simple concept that we want to survive as a species. So if we think something would be bad if it happened to us, we also think we shouldn't do that to anyone else. Now, from the perspective of another species, would it be evil? No. They don't care what humans do to each other. Perhaps a being with equivalent intelligence would, if they had come to similar conclusions. Which is quite likely, at least from my perspective, as that kind of morality is a foundation for being able to build a society. If you don't have to worry about your neighbour killing you and taking all your stuff, you can focus on other things. And finally, on the universal scale, no, it's neither good nor evil, as we are a speck of dust riding a fleck of crap around a lit match floating at the edge of some gigantic cosmic warehouse. If we all disappeared tomorrow, there'd be no one to care.
Question 2. If your meaning to life is subjective and your sense of purpose in life is truly meaningless when you take into account how brief it is in the geological timescale and how the universe will one day be destroyed, why do you try so hard, or why do you hold others to your subjective moral standards? Why do you judge God? Why do you feel the need to judge God?
Well, for starters, let's separate those two different questions out. First off, well, yes, in the grand scheme of things, literally nothing matters. Within the scope of my existence, these things absolutely matter to me. My subjective feelings are just that, mine. So whether or not existence will probably ultimately lead to nothing is irrelevant to me. I live in this world now, and I want it to be as good as it can so everyone can have a good, fulfilling life. Fact of the matter is, I will be long dead before the end of this universe. Also my children, and my children's children. So yeah, I'm going to make the best of what I've got right this second. As for judging God, from my perspective, God is an idea, something humans have used to explain things in the past, and more importantly to me, is used to justify acts that otherwise could not be justified. So I will criticize that idea when I feel it's necessary. But judging? Nah.
Question 3. What proof do you have to say that God doesn't exist? To prove that God doesn't exist, you have to have a logical reason as to why the universe came into existence out of the eternal realm of nothingness.
Well, aside from the fact that as an atheist I'm not making the claim God doesn't exist, I'm saying I don't believe your claim that he does. If you want to get into this argument, you're the one making the claim that something exists without tangible evidence. I'm perfectly willing to accept God does exist if his existence can be shown to me. But so far, I've not been convinced, and that's fine. Also, no one with any scientific grounding is making the claim that the universe came from nothing. not making the claim that it came from something either. As of yet, we don't actually know. But that doesn't mean slipping in a God claim is an appropriate response to that, because you don't know either. And that's okay too.
Question 4. Where and why did the universe pop into existence out of the Big Bang? Where did the multiverse pop out of? If there was no universe made out of space-time, does that mean that the universe just popped out of an eternal realm of nothingness?
You're talking about ideas, for the most part. Things like multiverse and Big Bang Theory are explanations for things that we observe. The fact that we observe the universe expanding can be explained by the universe being much closer together at some point. Background radiation in space shows that some point in the past, the very, very distant past, that a huge release of energy has happened. These and many, many other things lead us to theorize that at some point many, many, many millions of years ago that the universe expanded out from a single point. I know significantly less about multiverse, and I do not yet accept it, as it's frankly a rather young field of study compared to something like Big Bang. But if you seriously want to know more about these things, you should pick up a book.
Question 5. Where did life come from and how? How do you explain the fine-tuning of the universe? That means that there are hundreds of thousands of conditions that needed to be met so that the universe could come into existence or even support life.
You did 2 questions again, which is weird. We don't know where life came from exactly, but we can demonstrate that it could have formed naturally. And that's the thing you have to understand about most of the arguments about the origins of things. If there's an explanation that works without a supernatural element, then it simply makes more sense to use that explanation, since we can prove natural things exist. Secondly, the fine-tuning argument. The problem with this is you're making the assumption that life couldn't exist without the universe being the way it is right now. Unfortunately, that's kind of silly. Especially when you see the extreme conditions on Earth that still permit life. So there is at least a fairly wide gamut of conditions that permit life already. The only thing you can say is that we exist because the universe is the way it is. If it was different, there would either be something else or nothing. That doesn't actually prove anything.
Question 6. Why did the first organism need to consume food or energy to survive if it came into existence out of stardust? What drove it to survive?
The first organism would have been more akin to a machine. In fact, many of the cells in our bodies function like mechanisms. There's no drive behind them, they simply do whatever it is they do. The main reason the first ones would consume energy in whatever manner, and I think eating is not a good description for that, they would mostly do it to build copies of themselves, to self-replicate. The first organisms simply would not have been thinking, feeling creatures, just doing.
Question 7. Where did DNA come from? And how did something so complicated randomly come into existence? It is said that one single DNA cell can hold the equivalent to 4,800 books of information.
Nothing came into existence randomly. That demonstrates your lack of understanding of evolution. Those first self-replicating organisms were not complicated. The first types of DNA would have been extremely simple. The complexity built up over time, over millions and millions of years. Small changes over a long time make big changes.
Question 8. What evidence is there for the changing of kinds? We all know that there are thousands of species of the same kind of animal, like there are several kinds of dogs and several kinds of cats. But there is nothing in the record of evolution that proves that one kind of animal, like a fish, can ever evolve into a human. Cats are always cats, and humans are always humans. Some people say that because we all share DNA, that we are therefore all related. However, DNA and matter can merely be the mechanism God used to create all animals with, and He made each slightly different. So DNA and matter can simply be a mechanism used by God, which He used to create all of His creatures, and He made all of us slightly different.
Well, aside from the fact that that was one of the most difficult to listen to questions I think I've ever heard, there is evidence, tons of it in fact. Transitional fossils exist. All you have to do is go to Google, type transitional fossils, and you will see the difference, what can occur over millions of years. But the dogs are dogs and cats are cats. That argument is ridiculous. We have only been selectively breeding animals for a relatively short period of time on the geological scale, but we've already made many types of dogs so wildly different from each other that they actually have difficulty breeding. If we carried on, there would be a point where they would no longer be able to procreate, even though they have the same basic ancestor. Where's the thing that stops us from continuing this process? Where exactly does a dog cease to be a dog, and why couldn't we go past that? What mechanism prevents us from doing that?
I know these 8 questions will never be answered.
Well, I'm 8 for 8, so fail.
Because they cannot be scientifically deducted or answered. But I challenge you guys to try to answer them. So good luck, atheists, and God bless.
God bless you too, you simple little man. The arrogance of your claim is pretty astounding. My answers aren't the best in the world. My understanding of these subjects isn't phenomenal, and there are people who can answer your questions way better than I. But I can still easily come up with answers. The problem is your understanding of the topics is even worse than mine. Peace.